Good morning, says Mr. Tiwari. Good morning, Mr. Tiwari. Should we begin? Can you hear me? Am I audible? Is it fine? I have put myself live everywhere. Messages on WhatsApp, LinkedIn is live, YouTube is live. Everything is sorted. So if you allow me, yes, let's begin. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. We don't take a break. We cannot take a break. It doesn't make sense to take a break when you can essentially look into the future, right? We can predict the future. It doesn't make sense to take a break. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, Nishant, says Mr. Yogendra Pratap Singh. Mr. Singh, good morning. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better. One second, folks, there's some problem with the camera. False start, false start. Okay, we'll have to do it again. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis, right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go. But before we go, gotta follow tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail, every day. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like some hot water with black pepper in it. And here we go. Beautiful, isn't it? Let's do it again. Sublime, healing. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we're in this together. Such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. WeWork India is going public. WeWork India started in 2016, right? You know, because as an Indian franchise of the WeWork company, the famous WeWork. If you're interested in knowing the story of WeWork, there is a very good series called We Crashed. You know, Jared Leto, Anne Hathaway, was it? You know, yeah. So it was a pretty good story about Adam Newman, right? Legendary story, nothing comes close. The way the entire financial VC ecosystem was taken for a ride by this company. But anyway, the Indian business is not so notorious, let's say. It's been a fairly stable business, successful, more or less. You know, it's a pretty decent business. It's going public. It's going public at a revenue of over, at a valuation of about $1 billion, right? When its revenue is about 2,000 crores, I guess, right? And net profits have just begun, taking at like 125 crores, so it's the beginning. Uh, it's running at a price to sales of 4 to 4.6 or something. Revenue multiple is 4.6, which is steep, which is very steep for a company like WeWork. It's a flexible office services company, so it 4.6 is a little expensive. Ideally, it should be around 3.6 to 4 at max, right? So the company is a bit overvalued at the IPO. Let's see how it goes, right? But not a big deal. It's basically how the global franchise has disappeared, but the Indian unit has worked as a stable static operation, right? WeWork wanted to be a tech company, which was hilarious. Even at the time, it was very hilarious. But somehow it got a lot of money. Anyway, U.S. shutdown is basically on. The U.S. government shutdown. We discussed it yesterday. If you remember, we talked about the US political structure, the House of Representatives, the senators, the Senate seats, how shutdown happens when you don't have a super majority at the Senate. Right now, Republicans have something around 50, they need 58 or 63 or something of that sort, right? So, Democrats have blocked the government functioning. If they don't agree to a spending bill, it's gonna be shut down, but it's not gonna be shut down forever or for a long time because Republicans hold all the chips right now. How do they hold the chips? Because if they start firing federal employees, it's gonna be bad luck for Democrats because these federal employees, the government employees, U.S. government employees, they are pro Democrats very heavily. So if Democrats, in a bid to stop Trump, look at uh, you know, shutting the government down for an extended period of time, it's only going to hurt their base. So this shutdown is very temporary. But while it's temporary, the job reports data is going to get delayed because the government employees are not going to be working on it, right? And that is said to be key for decision making. The key inflation, retail sales reports, and job data. The beauty of American job data is that it's bullshit. Do you know about the American job data? It's full of shit. So all the data that was published before elections, 2024 elections by the Biden administration, under the Biden administration, it was all fake. It was all fake. So they had published great job numbers saying that these many jobs, like 3 lakh jobs, 2,75,000 jobs, or I don't know, millions in jobs they had created. It all turned out to be fake. Actually, there was like by 90%, the margin was 90% off. Then the particular, the Trump administration came, the job data started coming on. Then it was downward revised. So it was like the jobs are less. Now that person was fired again, right? Because Trump said that this person is politically compromised. So U.S. Job data is uh, a total crock of bullshit, and it doesn't matter if it's delayed a bit. So in any case, this particular shutdown should not extend for a long period of time. That is the prediction that I'm laying it out there. Let's see what happens. Mr. Tiwari asks, can they fire government employees in US? Not in India easily, I guess. India is impossible. It's very difficult to fire government employees. That's why Indians want government jobs, right? Because why do why does the entire UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh belt, the entire eastern part of the country wants government jobs? Is not because they want to contribute to the growth of the nation or whatever, you know. It's because they don't get fired. So Sarkari Naukri is still a very, very interesting proposition for everybody. And I'm from UP myself, so, I know it firsthand. Like everybody wants to be a babu because once you become a babu, there's no getting fired. By the way, speaking of this, there is a Twitter storm that has been created. Have you been following, guys? So there's a company called Windtrack or something. Mr. Praveen is one of the guys. Windtrack used to be importing a lot of stuff from countries, right? It was an import-export kind of a play, or an import play. And what they did on Twitter was Windtrack uh, Twitter handle, they went ahead and said that we are shutting our company down because Chennai's custom officials are essentially bribe taking corrupt assholes. That's what they wrote, right? Not in these words, but they said that these people have sucked the life out of our country, and they've made it so difficult to work that we are shutting our company down. We are basically putting it off, and they wrote a huge piece directly accusing or directly accusing Chennai's custom duty officials for the demise of their company. And they like highlighted a deep rooted malaise in the customs officials, right, of the country. So essentially the babu shahi of the customs, the IT, the customs player. So the players, they highlighted it, and it became a Twitter storm of magnanimous proportions. So it grew. Everybody started bringing their customs horror story, that how these people take bribes, and people were like all over the place, all over the place. Twitter, it became such a huge thing. Then you know what happened? The custom guys, the Chennai custom guys came forward, and they wrote an essay, a huge, insipidly boring, extraordinarily uninteresting essay on why it's not their fault and this particular importer had problems and so on and so forth. And everybody then it backlashed again, because people said that stop it, and people were hurling abuses, like proper abuses, Hindi abuses written in English, and they were just on the government. And many big entrepreneurs stepped in, you know. Many like Mr. Mohan the Spy, one of the founders of Infosys, a lot of people, like it became a firestorm. Madam Nirmala Sitharaman was tagged, everybody was tagged, and became a huge issue that a company essentially became a martyr, while saying that, I'm dying because of this system, so if you can do something about it, great, right? And you don't know what happens. We will not know what happens. Ideally, most likely nothing will happen. But it was just extraordinary, extraordinary. Like a company came out in the open and said, this is what it is, and it was just extraordinary. Mr. Tiwari says many other entrepreneurs are coming out for this issue, but taking the government head on is bad for business. It's that I don't agree, Mr. Tiwari. I mean, it might just be bad for the business, like the personal business, right? The guy's business, Wintrack. It could be definitely bad, but it's very good for the system. Now, I'm not saying anything is going to come out of it, right? The judge who was caught with cash burnt at his house, he's still working, right? So that matter has gotten delayed for some other time, right? It's just nothing has happened on that, right? And all the corruption cases, basically nothing happens. But uh, the guy who literally committed suicide, Mr. Atul Subhash, rest in peace, for the whole, marriage, marital law thing, right? Nothing has happened. So it's all cool. The judge, the very crooked judge who placed that judgment, she's still working. So you don't expect a change, but it's very necessary for the system, right? And it's very good for the guy to actually say that, it's obviously that business wasn't working out because of these guys, right? It was getting hurt, and he didn't want to pay bribes. So it's very good that he actually came out and just said that, hey, this is what it is. So at least of all, Mr. Abhishek Sharma says center government has launched an inquiry into this. It's gonna lead to something. At least, uh, what can you do to break the system, right? If you cannot, let's say, hurt somebody's job, okay, you cannot hurt somebody's job, you can't take their money away, you can't take the money that they take in bribes, you can't steal the money they've stolen, right? That you can't do. But what can you do which actually makes a difference, right? What you can do is hurt the prestige. So if anybody who says they want to be an income tax or a customs guy, they want to serve the government, everybody knows that they're looking out for being corrupt people, and they are basically looking at fleecing away from other people's money. So you hurt the prestige of the government employees, you hurt the prestige of the babus, you hurt the prestige of the judges, right? And if you've heard the prestige enough, it's just, uh, when prestige is gone, everything is gone, right? So that is one way of looking at it. So it's very good for business, because it fundamentally changes everything. It changes the equation. So that's going on when it comes to Indian government. Moving on, Musk is the first entrepreneur in the world to actually conquer $500 billion, and that's exactly why, if moving on, taking that example, that's why it makes sense to highlight the wrongdoings in every, in any place, because you can't expect the VC community to change, or VC community to, but it makes sense to hurt the prestige if somebody doesn't deserve it, right? because that essentially changes the equation. His own business was dead anyway, Mr. Tiwari. That's what he was saying, right? That it's become impossible to work. So his own business was dead anyway. So he had two options: to shut down quietly or to shut down like he shut down, right? So I have a lot of respect for him. He took all the prestige at once, and now the entire country knows. Everybody knew, but now the country is speaking out because of him, right? And you never know where this goes, right? Most likely it won't lead to anything. It'll subside. Everything is like 15 seconds of attention span, right? Indians have a memory of a goldfish, but if it sticks, it's just extraordinary, right? Anyway, we took a lot of time here. Sorry. Moving on. Mr. Musk is the first entrepreneur or first person to hit $500 billion of net worth. Tesla's stock went up $500 billion. So, Mr. Musk might just be the world's first trillionaire, right? If that happens, it's gonna be extraordinary. The world's first trillionaire, and it's very very possible because Tesla, Robo Taxi, and the Optimus robot, both of these products come out tomorrow, and both of these products, according to Mr. Musk, have no limiting factor, right? It's just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. He says that in no product in human history has had the kind of interest that the Optimus robot has, right? It'll learn to play piano or whatever, and it'll be your personal robot. And he says it's gonna change the world. And then the robo taxi, the car which drives itself, uh, it'll be a cab. You can literally order a Tesla, and it'll drive to your home, right now. And he says the robo taxi is gonna kill it. So you never know if the stock doubles next year and he becomes, essentially the world's first trillionaire. Speaking of $500 billion, OpenAI has also become as valuable as Mr. Musk. $500 billion market cap. Some people have sold stake, employees, and so on and so forth. These people have sold stakes, and some $6.6 billion worth of stakes have been sold, right? So that's what's going on. So just imagine, like, you were a young guy, you didn't have much clue in life, right? And you were just working with computer science. You got mentored by somebody, and then you just entered OpenAI when it was beginning. Uh, from a non-profit, you started working, and it became a for-profit, and you got some stocks, right? And then suddenly, those stocks got sold for $100 million. That's like 900 crores, right? So you are a 30 something guy who was working at you just happened to work at OpenAI, and you're worth like real money, 900 crores, right? This is why it makes sense. This is why Mr. Woody Allen's dialogue is the most important dialogue in the world, right? Match point. What was it? It's just perfect, right? The man who said, "I'd rather be lucky than good," saw deeply into life. People are often afraid to admit what greater part of life is dependent on luck. We're often scared to admit how much of life is beyond our control. It's like a match where the ball hits the top of the net at a split second, and sometimes it goes forwards and you win, and sometimes it doesn't. Or maybe it doesn't and you lose. Match point. So it's basically, you can just hope to be at the right place at the right time, like the early employees of OpenAI. And if OpenAI didn't do anything, right, if the company would have shut down, it would have shut down and nobody would have known about it, right? And that's the end of the story. Moving on. Uh, there's a lot happening geopolitically. Israel, Gaza, Russia, Ukraine. By the way, the Russia-Ukraine problem is turning bad for Russia because Russian refining capacity has gotten hurt, right? Some of the refining units have gotten hit by Ukrainian attacks. So Russia has a problem as far as the refining place considered. So now they're sending crude over, and India is essentially filling in. So India's refineries are sending it to Turkey and Brazil and so on and so forth. So some problems. Reliance is gaining, even though Nayara has a small share, and so on and so forth. Mr. Varun Bhardwaj says plenty of unofficial trillionaires already parked in the UAE. Yeah, true, true. This must be in reference to Mr. Musk's story, right? But that's the catch, right? They're unofficial. Tectonic seats. Index US indices have gone up. That's it's most of what US markets are gaining because of the AI semiconductor chip play, right? That's pretty interesting. Now India is also gonna have some market as far as the whole chip making thing is considered, the semiconductor, the AI play. Our markets will also soon have some representation of this industry. So if you look at American markets, the indices, most of what they've gained is because of AI. Most of what they've gained, right? If you take the few stocks which are related to AI away, US market hasn't really grown much, right? And now China is also looking at that kind of growth, because most of the growth that is coming to Chinese markets is coming because of Alibaba, the $50 billion stuff, and so on and so forth, right? So if you take that away, even Chinese markets have not been that pretty. So Indian markets, as soon as they have some representation of AI related entities, it's gonna be a new high for the Indian market. Mr. Sharma says this war has been so long, gone for so long. What exactly Russia Ukraine want to achieve by the prolonged war? Russia wants some territory, and Ukraine. So this war, if we are to talk just like 2 minutes on it, maybe a minute and a half, Russia was opposed to the idea of Ukraine joining NATO, right? But Ukraine, aided by US, started, it's positioning itself as a NATO member. What NATO means is North Atlantic, some alliance. Okay, what is NATO's full form? It's basically an anti-Russia alliance of US and Europe, so that the imperial Russia doesn't look at expansionary policies. Okay, so that's what it means. NATO's full form. Just let me. It's North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay, so North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Russia says that on the border of Russia are countries which are not a part of NATO. Ukraine is one of those countries. So if NATO becomes a part of, if Ukraine becomes a part of the NATO forces essentially come on Russian borders. Now Russia was against this. Russia didn't want NATO troops on its borders. It said that that's not gonna work out. But the Barack Obama administration, these people have been warmongers. So the first war between Russia and Ukraine happened during Barack Obama, right? Before 2016. So second term of Barack Obama. Now in 2016 to 20, nothing happened between Russia and Ukraine. The Crimea in the 2006, prior to 2016, in the Crimea conflict, Russia had taken over, the part of Crimea, because it said it was a port of some significance. Anyway, so in 2020, the Biden administration, they essentially started looking at this opportunity to do a regime change operation with Russia. So they wanted Ukraine war, basically a direct hot war with Russia, with Ukraine as a proxy. So if you remember from that time, Zelensky was talking about, we'll talk to the Russian administration, but it's not going to be this administration, right? So they were openly saying that they want to do to Russia what they did to Iraq or Libya or some other countries. Now that was US plan. Then came Trump, right? And in that exercise, they figured out that Russia was not. It's a big problem. Russia didn't get weaker in any possible way. They were expecting that the sanctions, they threw Russia out of the SWIFT plan, the payment architecture. So they thought that this would hurt the Russian economy, but the Russian economy didn't exactly get hurt. Now because it didn't get hurt, it said that we're gonna go for the kill, and we're gonna have some sort of territories which are Russian. So their perspective is that these territories were not Ukrainian in any way. These people speak Russian, and Ukraine's democracy is a for democracy It's basically these people have jailed political opponents. Media houses are banned, and so on and so forth. So we'll have a referendum at these areas when uh, both the armies have retreated, and so that's what they're looking at. Russia is looking at a territory. Ukraine was earlier looking at a regime change operation, which massively backfired for everybody, and now they're basically looking at saving face. So that is a crash course on the Russia Ukraine situation. Sorry for taking too much of time, man. We took a lot of time here. Anyway, consumer companies cheer as GST cuts light up Navratri sales. Thanks, says Mr. Abhishek Sharma. You're always welcome, Mr. Sharma. So what were we talking about? Yeah, we were talking about consumer companies cheer as GST cut lights up Navratri sales, right? Now that's very, very good. And now it's becoming clearer and clearer that the GST rationalization has indeed made the difference. You know why? Some numbers. Makers of Maruti got 7 lakh inquiries and 150,000 bookings during Navratri. It expects booking to touch 2 lakh vehicles by Thursday closing. Wow, 2 lakh vehicles by yesterday. And even the consumer electronics space, LG, Haier, Godrej, everybody, it's extraordinary. Higher sales, for instance, sold 85%, with companies selling out its Diwali stock. Did I get disconnected, folks? Was there an issue? Did I get disconnected? Can anybody hear me? Hello? Paulo usted inglés. Can anybody hear me? Was I gone for a second? Because there came a notification for me. I was not active. The mic had disconnected. Can you hear me? Glitches. Sorry. Audible. Is it okay now? Yes, you were off but back now. Sorry about this. Thank you. So anyway, so Maruti says that they're gonna sell 2 lakh cars in 10 days, which is just extraordinary. Haier has sold out its stock of 2.5 lakh plus TVs. You were gone for 10 seconds. Okay, so I hope you didn't miss out on anything. Sorry about this. Yeah. Yeah. Mahindra says retail climbed 60% compared to last Navratri. At Hyundai, SUV sold 72% plus. So 60% up, right? 100% up, 60% up. That leaves no doubt that it's worked out. It's worked out, guys. So hold on to your consumers' stocks, right? Now, these earnings, when are these earnings going to come out? So it's April, May, June, July, August, April, May, June. Yeah, that's June quarter. July, August, September. That's September quarter. Now, this September quarter results are going to be out in some time. Now, they're not going to be pretty. They're not going to be that pretty. They're going to be okayish, right? Okayish. So when these results are out in some time, it's not going to be looking that great. But October, November, December, that particular period, when these numbers come out, the revenue numbers, the earnings reports of that quarter come out, that'll basically be in January mid. That's when the good news is gonna really flow, right? So this is pretty awesome. This is great. Thank God. This country depended on this, right? Essentially. Moving on. This could also be pent-up demand due to lower prices, deferred purchases. Some private banks results will be in October. All the September quarter results will come out, Mr. Tiwari, right? So this could be pent-up demand due to lower purchases, says Mr. Sharma. Of course, deferred purchases. We talked about this. Foreign defense companies' local arms may turn Indian. So what India is saying is that the wholly owned subsidiaries of foreign companies, the defense companies, they'll be considered Indian. Now, if they are considered Indian, India will basically be looking at acquiring things for them, because their defense purchases are mandated to have some sort of national prioritization, right? But if there is a wholly owned subsidiary of a foreign company, right, which is totally Indian, right, so they are marking it as Indian, which is going to lead to expedited flow of defense materials, and it's going to lead to more competition and better, right? Private defense players witnessed 20% CAGR between FY22 and 25. They expect to clock 16 to 18% revenue growth in FY16. Projected to spend 1,000 crores on capex. 1,000 crores is a joke. Order books are supposed to reach 55,000 crores. So defense is obviously killing it. We also need to watch out on what they do to the defense expenditure in February's budget, right? That's gonna be very important. I predict that they're gonna raise the bar. If they raise the bar, right now the country spends like 1.9% of the total GDP on defense. If it goes up to 2.2 or maybe 2.5, it's gonna be amazing, amazing for everybody, for the country, right? Proposals worth $13 billion pour in for electronics parts scheme. So if you remember, there was an electronics parts scheme called ECMS, Electronics Component Manufacturing Scheme, right? The government has gotten 1.15 lakh crores. That's some $13 billion in investment proposals under the scheme, which is double the target. So this is awesome. This is gonna lead to about 1.5 lakh direct jobs, which is just extraordinary. Enclosures for mobiles, IT hardware, product related devices, HDI, MSAP, flexible PCBs, electromechanicals, multi-layered PCBs, display modules, sub-assembly, and so on and so on and so on. So all of this is happening because in 2017 we decided that we're gonna make phones. That turned everything around. When we started assembling phones, we started assembling other materials. When we started assembling other products, we started getting a lot of interest. It just kept going up. So little things, everything that is to be judged from a second order and third order perspective, right? If second and third order effects decide the fate of everything, right? Makes it very, very convenient to look into the future. Moving on. India and China to resume direct flights this month. India and Chinese ties are warming up as a response to India and US souring of relationships. However, despite the high level talks, the Chinese haven't really given the rare earth minerals to India, right? As of now, which is so strange, which is so weird. But yeah, that is true. Moving on. IHC takes control of Samman Capital. We've talked about this yesterday. To get promoter tag. Moving on. Startups are looking at hiring 1,70,000 in headcount, despite the funding winter and so on and so forth, led by hunt for tech talent. 60 to 80,000 new jobs may be created in FY26. Focus on campus lateral recruitment as well as in-house upskilling. So says a report, right? 23% rise in job postings in compared to March 2025. September 2025 saw 23% rise in job postings. Okay. Moving on. A lot of political chit chat. It's dumb as they come, man. It's so good. I thank my stars every day for not focusing on politics. Spoils the mood. Doesn't really do anything, right? We do such good work by not focusing on politics. Moving on. Okay. Global aircraft financiers flag issues with India's repossession draft rule. So India has come out with a repossession draft rule. Repossession draft rule is, let's say if an airline is down, right, and it can't pay, and at what play does a lessor take the plane away, right? What is that time, or let's say what is that position where a lessor is supposed to take back the plane. So India has come out with its own repossession draft rule. In that, they've mentioned that they want salaries of the employees to get cleared before the planes can actually be taken over by the lessors. Now, who knows the root of this particular holding? Who knows why they've taken the lessors for a ride on this one, the government? We've discussed this. There is a player, two words, two words, right? And there is a player who's responsible for the death of two, if not, yeah, two what do airlines in India. What is that company? India had a conflict. Airlines had a conflict with a particular lessor, right? Now that lessor essentially screwed an Indian airline, Go Air, right? The legal cases mounted up and so on and so forth. What was that airline? Sorry, lessor. Do you remember? Go Air was the airline, but who was the lessor who screwed Go Air? Pratt and Whitney, Mr. Sumant Kumar, you're right. So basically, what the government says: unpaid employee wages, PF, airport operator fees, navigation charges, fuel bills, and GST on leases for financing. They need to be paid before the lessor can take away the phone. The plane. Removing a DGCA rule from 2018 that capped airport and navigation charges at 3 months from the date of deregistration notice is enough for these people to take away. So obviously lessors are not happy with this rule because they say that if the airline doesn't end up paying these things, it's basically we are gonna be stuck. We won't be able to take the plane away. And 80% of the fleet that Indian airlines have in general, they are leased, right? They come from with nearly 80% of India's fleet leased. Lessors say that the final version of the rules will play a key role in shaping financing cost and global investor sentiment towards Indian aviation. The point is, Indian aviation will have global interest anyway. It's about making it in such a way that the lessors cannot take the airlines for a ride, right? Something of that sort. So, global aircraft lessors and finances have raised concerns. Civil Aviation Ministry last week put out the draft protection of interest in aircraft objection rules. Draft, which seeks to implement the Cape Town Convention, makes it mandatory for creditors through the irrevocable deregistration and export request to clear a wide set of dues before exporting aircrafts from the country. So the aircrafts will not be exported from the country if things don't get okay. Right now, this is a very weird way of screwing with these guys, but definitely a way. It is a way, not the best way, but a way, right? Moving on, franchise flicks lose their shine as big bucks bounce back small. High budget indie film series and sequels are struggling to generate buzz and recover costs. So, these big budget films like Jolly LLB 3, Baghi 4, War 2, Dhadak 2, Son of Sardar 2, Houseful 5, War 2, these movies have managed collections of just 236 crores in India when they had a production budget of 300 to 400 crore. So when a movie has a budget of 400 crores, it needs to make 800 crores at the box office to break even, because half of the money at the box office essentially goes to the cinema halls, right? So if these movies had a collection of 230 crores, they actually made like 115 crores net, right? So at a budget of 400 crores, about 400 crores, they got 100 crores back. So they essentially lost like 300 movies on these shit pile movies. 300 crores on these shit pile movies, right? Which is great news for the industry. These sequels have to be shunned, right? If these sequels aren't shunned, there's not going to be creative exercise coming from the industry. Bollywood is in a very, very bad shape because all these people think about is some stars, right? So I wrote an article about it recently. Many months ago, I had written a very viral article on why these stars were essentially looking at shifting their business model. So they're not actors anymore, right? They become entrepreneurs. They're becoming brand salesmen and so on and so forth, right? Like they've full time, they're getting into brands. They're participating equity wise and they have significant holding in companies trying to leverage whatever visibility they have right now, because soon with money going away from the movie industry, they won't have any visibility to speak of. So their brand equity will go like this. The only way to actually make money for these guys would be to have deleveraged position with a lot of brand companies, so that annuity income can come. Because the way to save the industry, right, with the way to save the industry was what Woody Allen sir suggested, that it makes sense to have small movies, right? What happens with small movies? Let's say you make a movie for 30 crores, right? 30 crores is still a lot of money, but let's say you make a movie of 30 crores including PNA. So there's a 15 crore budget and then a 15 crore PNA budget. Okay, 30 to 50 crores is a movie. In 400 crores, right? If you're averaging like 50 crores per movie, you can make 8 movies. You can make 8 movies in 400 crores, right? Now, 8 movies mean 8 stories, 8 writers, 8 different universes, 8 opportunities to showcase to people, because it's not going to be a star heavy thing. People are going to see maybe good writing and so on and so forth. 8 different movies go out, right? Some of them work, some of them don't. If they lose, you lose just 50 crores, right? If they win, you have an outstanding success. Let's say if that one movie, a 50 crore movie, makes 200 crores at the box office, right? It ends up making 100 crores, so it doubles the money, right? The way to save the movie industry is focusing on small movies and a lot of movies, instead of thinking like a business, MBA 101, and thinking like, hey, why do we make 550 crore 8 movies? Let's make 400 crore 1 movie, and let's put all the money and promote it like hell, and then it makes 1,000 crores at the box office, and then you're gonna win. That's a very, very wrong way of looking at it. First of all, it's wrong for the movie watcher. It's bad for me, because I'll get a shitty movie, right? If you spend 400 crores on a movie, that movie will not be a piece of art, right? It's gonna be a market tested, it's a market research product. You're gonna be testing it out with kids, adults, aged people, and so on. So you're gonna be testing that product like you test a biscuit, right? A movie is not a biscuit. Movie is supposed to have some sort of novelty, it's a piece of art at the end of the day. So that movie is gonna be a shit cake for me, right? And then it's a bad news for anybody who's getting involved in the movie industry, right? Because once a movie becomes a market research project, it fails to be a writer's vehicle. So writers can't write anything. They have to say, oh, लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं, oh, ये वाला customer audience की report क्या है, ये क्या कह रहे हैं, ये क्या कह रहे हैं. So they're not writing a movie. They're basically, it's a chat GPT kind of a bullshit exercise, right? Which hurts everybody. So it's bad for me as a movie lover. I'm a huge movie buff, so it's bad for me. I can't watch these movies. It's bad for the writers. It's bad for people who are working on that movie, because they're gonna lose out on money, man. If tomorrow the film industry goes for a toss, they're gonna be out of jobs. So they go out of business, right? It's just good for the stars who are making a lot of money. That's it. So it's just a bullshit, pathetic exercise which they need to let go. Mr. Raj says, plus, with OTT and alternative ways of entertainment, there's taking the timeshare of people. Movies and theatre business have lesser market to capture. Meanwhile, SRK, who's a pioneer of this trend, has entered the billionaire club. Yeah, he's entered the billionaire club. The thing is, with movies, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, so Mr. Woody Allen was right when it comes to movies distributing budgets. Yeah, so I was saying, if you want to read the best possible article on this, okay, the best possible article on this, just an article which blows your mind, which is perhaps the best thing that you can read about movies and about movie industry in general. There's something that Mr. Martin Scorsese has written. He wrote an opinion piece in New York Times like many years ago. He said, why Marvel movies are not cinema. Marvel movies are not cinema. Let me explain. Okay, so he wrote about the sequel culture. Now, Departed, one of the best movies of all time, perhaps the best gangster movie of all time, if not the best, one of the best. It's just extraordinary. The Departed, the studio, he fought with the studio because they wanted a sequel of Departed, and he says no sequel, everybody dies, right? That was Departed, because a sequel is is just an annuity job. It's for a writer, right? It's not a creative exercise. Anyway, enough about Bollywood. The industry is falling. Mr. Bijli, if you remember, few months ago, Mr. Bijli was talking about how they have a nice pipeline of movies, so it's gonna be good for the industry. And I said he's right to paint a positive picture of the industry he's building, he represents, but it's not gonna work out, right? Because I knew these movies, Bagi 4 and Houseful 5 or whatever. This shit doesn't work, man, and it's not supposed to work. It's pathetic. Anyway, moving on. D2C brands are doubling their retail store presence. Uh, India's Google's top test bed for AI search, says Madam Elizabeth Reed. Well, obviously, right? Uh, India is the hotbed of all sorts of data harvesting exercises, and Google is no different. So they say that hundreds of millions of people are essentially from India and US. They're not given the numbers, but they say earlier when we used to come out with a tool or when come out with an innovation, the pipeline to India, launch to India used to be like 18 months, right? Now we're talking about months, if not weeks. So whatever happens in US, the innovation we bring in US market will come to India very very quickly. So that is one. Secondly, she says the Indian R&D center, they just don't do India centric exercises. They are doing things of global importance, which is I guess good for people who are working with Google in India. Moving on. Just 1 second, guys. Yeah. Gap used by companies to illegally move forex overseas to be fixed. So what these companies, these funny companies used to do was that they CBDT, that's basically the tax people, uh, they said that with PDF editors they used to edit something called Form 15CB. So key remittance document is Form 15CB, on which CA enters details, applies a digital signature, and generates a unique document identification number, UDIN, right? An 18-digit alphanumeric code. Now, once the CA files the Form 15 CB with the IT department, an acknowledgement number is generated. CA shares the PDF with the client, who logs with the tax portal to file Form 15 CA by quoting the acknowledgement. But in that PDF, he can fiddle. So with that PDF, he fiddles and he changes it, and the tax authorities don't check the number, the authentication number, and they can remit like hundreds of crores out, right? So, and all of that is taken as import expense, right? This form is largely auto-filled. Finally, the PDFs are submitted to the bank, process the remittance. The loophole lies in this crude forgery, falsifying the Form's 15CB PDF with editing software, right? The fraud would be exposed immediately if the banker verified UDIN, but if they don't, it's going to be import payments of hundreds of crores and the money goes out of the country. So what did we talk about, right? And maybe the banks are like genuinely in on it, right? So it's not possible that the banks just forget to check the UDIN. Sometimes they just don't check and the money goes out, right? Hundreds of crores. So that they're trying to fix. They say that we're gonna it used to be on paper, now it's on machine, so we're gonna make it so that they can't like forge the UDIN numbers, and the banks will have to check the UDIN number. Without checking the UDIN number, they won't be able to process the remittance. If they're not being able to process the remittance, this thing will be fixed. And what is the question to ask? What's the obvious question when something good is supposed to happen, right? What is the natural question to ask whenever somebody comes up with something good, right? It is, why didn't you do it earlier? Why didn't you do it earlier? Right? The scam used to be existing. Why didn't you do it earlier? There is no answer to that question. The best answer is better late than never, right? Moving on. FPIs are staying as net equity sellers, but have slowed down the selling in the Indian equity markets. They've slowed down, but still selling heavy. Domestic funds are continuing to support the equities. September, they invested 44,000 crores, right? In the first 9 months, they've invested 3.7 lakh crores, right? Compared to 2.8 lakh crores earlier. Uh, the FPIs have sold a lot of net investments in FPI in the primary market was at 371 million, 4 month low. They sold equities worth 2.7 billion, with an inflow of nearly 4 billion, right? Sold equities worth 17 billion in 2025. So FPIs have sold net level 17.5 billion dollars worth of equity from the Indian markets, which is not good, of course. But you know where this money is going, right? Munoz COS MX JV, uh, Munoz and COS MX JV to ramp up lithium ion manufacturing in India. Joint venture aims to meet growing demand for leading smartphone brands. So lithium ion manufacturing going to happen in India. Once again, second order effect of something that happened in 2017 and succeeded. Moving on. Okay. So RBI is weighing on a uniform compensation policy for consumer grievances like an ombudsman plan. Looks to offer extra compensation cases resolved at level of RBI or its ombudsman. That's okay. Complaints filed with RBI ombudsman in FY25 was 2.96 lakh. In FY24, 2.93 lakhs. So less complaints, but they want to have some sort of payout thing, right? Portal rollout soon for speedy transfer of unclaimed shares. So India had a lot of unclaimed shares problem, right? For a long time, if the shares essentially were unclaimed, shares, dividends, and matured debentures are not claimed for 7 years by investors, are transferred by companies to the Investor Education and Protection Fund under the Corporate Affairs Ministry. So, they are basically looking at speedier transaction transferring. They've been thinking about this for 2 years. Hadn't happened. A lot of economic value is just, you know, what is it called? Blocked because of this unclaimed share problem, right? So the portal will enable this transfers by authority and so on and so forth. Yeah, moving on. Probe launched into Chennai's firm's graft allegations against custom officials. Very small article. Moving on. Margin trading bets hit record rates past 1 lakh crore in value. Geo Finance, TCS, Tata Motors, most traded with borrowed funds. And now more and more borrowed trading is going to happen with the RBI thing, investments, right? Rate cut in play, focus on accrual duration funds. So India is looking at a rate cut. If tariffs don't solve themselves, right, for a few months, India is going to notice. Maybe in December, if the tariff situation doesn't get solved by December, I hope it does. I really hope it does. I pray it does. If it doesn't happen, India will have to do another rate cut, right? This is going to be good news, of course, for the consumption market, but it's going to rock the markets for a while. Moving on. LG India's market cap on par with Korean parent. It's okay. Moving on. Trump and tariffs could decide the course of RBI rate revision. We've talked about that. Possible drop 5% by Feb if tariffs stay high. December cut conditional. Moving on. Lending leeway to pave way for 5 lakh credit demand. So as we know, the retail credit has been moderate, right? To spur that, what the RBI has done is that it's gone away with the 10,000 crore limit, right? So what they're saying is now that the banks are healthy, the provisioning is okay, they've taken away the limit for large borrowings over 10,000 crores, so you can go, right? Then with this, a lot of subpar borrowers will get money, but there'll be a growth in the credit play, which is very, very necessary, right? Then of course the big part is that M&As will have banks coming in, right? The merger and acquisition, that is a very big market, 1.2 lakh crore, right? M&A, India's M&A activity in FY24 was 120 billion, about 10 lakh crore, right? And banks have a lot of money. Potential incremental credit demand could be as high as 1.2 lakh crore. So M&A, then restrictions away from large borrowings, will actually help the credit demand. So there's going to be a credit uptick from banks. So a lot of money which was otherwise looking at other sources of borrowing will come to the banks. Big money. Even if SBI estimates that even if 10 to 15% of these borrowings, which were basically incremental corporate borrowings, commercial papers, and so on and so forth, 30 lakh crores, if some of them come to the banks, like 30 lakh crores, external commercial borrowings, bonds, and so on and so forth, if 10 to 15% of them come, it's gonna lead to great news for banks. What's the correlation between rate cut and stock markets? Can you please talk about it? Okay, Mr. Sumant Kumar asks, we've talked a lot about this, Mr. Kumar. So what happens is a rate cut. What means is the rate cuts lead to easier financing, cheaper financing, right? When you get a loan at a lower interest rate, you can have better loans. So whenever a rate cut is supposed to decide the supply of money in a country. Okay, so if you increase the rate cut, if you make borrowing difficult, if you make borrowing expensive, the supply of money shrinks, right? Because not many people can borrow. Supply of money shrinks. So what happens with supply of money shrinking is that inflation, inflation comes down. Okay, inflation comes down. So with rate cut going down, what you see is the economy starts growing because there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of money in the market. With money in the market, inflation goes up. Okay, when there's too much of money in the market, inflation goes up because there's a lot of cash, right? The thing becomes more expensive. The inflation goes up and growth also grows up. So when rate cuts come down, when the country comes to, when the RBI decreases rates, the economy starts going on a faster growth trajectory. When that happens, when companies feel comfortable borrowing money because the interests are low, they grow. When they grow, stocks go up, right? It's supposed to be good. But in the interim, when rate cuts are changed, the bond markets also shift a little. So what happens with bonds is, let's say you decreased rates, right? Now, once the rates are decreased, the bonds which other people had already and the new bonds which are going to get issued, it sorts of rocks that bond market boat, which also rocks the equity market boat a little. So there's some sort of flux in the market, but simple answer is, if rate cuts happen, the country grows faster, inflation grows, but companies also grow. So stocks essentially look at going up, right? When borrowing becomes cheaper, stocks go up. That's the simple answer in a nutshell. However, some variances happen in the bond market, which sort of makes things complicated a bit. But yeah, I hope that was sort of a convoluted explanation, but necessary because it's not a straight sell, right? Reduce rates, and it's gonna be great for the market. It's obviously gonna be great for companies. They'll be able to get cheaper money. With cheaper money, they'll be able to invest, they'll be able to grow, and so on and so forth. But it also has some sort of negative effects, which is what I wanted to cover. Moving on. So credit market is going to be great for banks, right? Banks start to see benefits of rate cuts, advances rise. Indian banks, South Indian Bank, Karur Vyasa banks are benefiting from the 100 BPS policy rates. So 100 BPS is 1%. So the 1% reduction in the rates is leading to more advances of these banks, right? So rates come down, more loans, banks are happy, right? And banks are happy, companies are happy, people are happy, small businesses are happy because they can take a lot of loans. They'll take business loans, people will take car loans, people will take home loans, and so on and so forth. So the economy grows up, markets grow up, stock markets grow up, right? So it's good news. But for bond market, not so much, at least in the interim, right? Moving on. So what you want to do is, why I wanted to say about this was that you can't just change rates or decrease rates continuously. You got to give it time. so that the bond market can stabilize, and then you rate cut, do the rate cut again, so that it stabilizes, and then you rate cut again, so it stabilizes. You can't just in a short interval of time, right? So it hurts the process. Moving on. Compass has said, but for banks, M&A Cs are rough. It isn't easy. High risk valuations and tight timeline may push banks to rethink traditional assessment methods. Now that banks are warming up to the whole idea of M&A financing, it's obviously they're going to change their ways, but it's all going to be very, very good, right? Moving on. Inox AP starts building specialty gas hub for semicons in Dholera. Again, a second order effect. A specialty gas hub in Dholera. So what is in Dholera? Tata's fab is in Dholera. What happens in a Tata fab when you're making chip? You needed specialty gases, right? Once you need specialty gases, you're gonna need somebody who makes those specialty gases, which is where Inox AP is getting in. Obviously, that's not reason enough for such a big gas hub to exist. So it's also gonna look for other clients, some international exports of specialty gases and so on and so forth. But its manufacturing, or let's say setting up of that plant, is coinciding with the initiation of the Dholera plant in Gujarat, which is once again how ecosystems develop, right? You lay one move and things start developing. So you start one company, a very small company, right? In a very small desolated area, you'll see a chai wala starting to come. You'll see some biscuit vendors. You'll see some Maggie point starting to turn up. You'll see phone recharges. You'll see cigarette companies and all sorts of people. Just one office, right? And when this happens at scale, like a Dholera scale, it changes the world, right? So Tata Electronics is building India's fab, 91,000 crore. Inox was the first electronic gas company to get land allotted for their facility with a 500 crore initial investment. I'm very hopeful that within 12 to 18 months, we should have this facility operational. Hopefully, it will be in sync and on time with the Tata facility. So, second order effect. Very good. Tata projects fourth generation manufacturing infrastructure to build up better margins, right? For the US hyperscalers, data centers, and so on and so forth. Moving on. Spiritual materials are selling on online quick commerce stores like puja stuff, right? Buy offline, guys. Buy offline. You know, every buck spent on quick commerce is a buck stolen from a small business. That's what I say. So buy offline. These people might just be selling things for cheap right now, but they are making losses. They have big daddy money from behind, right? These people are not doing an honest business right now. And this is just gonna hurt the overall economy in a very, very serious way. So buy offline is my request. Moving on. You can totally ignore it, you know, but it's just my perspective. Moving on. ONDC's new financial scheme opens boost to D2C logistics. Others. Full privacy, no ads promise to drive engagement, says Sridhu, CEO of Zoho, Mr. Mani Vembu. He says 100x increase in traffic is great. We're going to be full privacy, no ads, and we're going to drive engagement, right? That's obviously not going to work out. They'll need something else to break the network effects. Moving on. Center has notified a new authority to essentially work on the gaming play, which was obviously long coming, right? So that's that, ladies and gentlemen. We've come to the end of the 130th episode of Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:12. We're gonna punch in anytime. I hope you had fun. I hope it was fun. It's always fun when there are a lot of people. Today we had a significant number of people. Not auntie level significant. Like auntie had, she had like hundreds of people viewing her, man. Like kare, say subscribe kare, like kare. You know, she had like a lot of people, man. And people were sending her money, and she was like, "Oh, thank you, Yogendra." That's how she said, "Thank you, मैं ठीक हूँ, आप कैसे हो?" And then came like $100 from Sumant. "Thank you, Sumant, मैं ठीक हूँ, आप कैसे?" That's what she was doing. Well, it's not that good for me, but thank you so much. it was it was awesome, man. Watching that auntie was eye opening for me. Anyway, here's thanking Mr. Tushar Tiwari, Mr. Yogendra Pratap Singh, Mr. Abhishek Sharma, Mr. Varun Bhardwaj, Mr. Amrit Raj, Mr. Sumant Kumar, of course, and everybody else who joined. Thank you. It was really nice. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. And I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully, right? Please take care. Bye bye.